All right, let's do this one more time. My name is Matt McDonald. I might be Spider-Man, but mostly I do movie reviews. Sometimes they get a little crazy, but I love doing them. And today, our movie in the middle is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the sequel to the explosive 2018 story of Miles Morales, this time as he traverses the Spider-Verse to stop the villain Spot from breaking it. It stars Shameik, Hailee Steinfeld, Brian Tyree Henry, Oscar Isaac, Jake Johnson, and Jason Schwartzman. Well, you guys already know how I feel about Into the Spider-Verse in my ranking video that I did before No Way Home, and it's kind of the same that almost everybody on the planet feels. So let's just get right into the highs about this one. Firstly, the visuals. They have stepped everything up in this movie, and one of them is definitely the visuals, which is insane considering in the first one they were already just, it was so interesting, it was so unique, it was like you were watching a comic book, and it's the same in this one, but they have stepped it up even more. It's even more explosive, it's even more chaotic, even more colorful. There are even parts in certain scenes where they have a background, but then as the scene goes on, they'll neglect that background altogether and just make it this more abstract, like, shapes and patterns and colors to kind of separate that moment within the scene. But once again, obviously I think everybody knows it at this point, but there is very obviously an epilepsy warning for this movie. That was something that I was not proud of in the first movie that they didn't do, was put that. I think at this point everybody knows, so it's not as, I guess, needed, but still, just be careful. So they really took it to the next level, and it just kind of matches how chaotic it's getting story-wise as well, and it really does feel like you are watching a comic book come to life on screen, not just visually, but in this one, definitely in terms of the story as well. Again, not just how it's portrayed, but what is happening. Because the story, the emotion, the characters all get stepped up majorly in this one. It just feels so much bigger. And that's, yeah, obviously because we're going into the Spider-Verse. Well, I guess across the Spider-Verse in this one. The characters, there's so much depth. They give so much time to the beginning, setting these characters up and resetting some of them up that we'd already seen and kind of diving into them more. We get more on Spider-Gwen this time. They did a very, very good job of giving that foundation so that when we get to the end of this one, and then when we get to the third one, it really feels like we know these characters and we are in this. And the emotion as well. They had so many good emotional family scenes specifically. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, most of the characters in this movie are in some form or another a family, but they did just a very good job of having all of these grounded moments within all of the absurdness that is the multiverse. And I really, really did like the story on this one because, number one, it feels complex. It feels like the conflict is really, really well done, I think, because it's the type of conflict where, for parts of it at least, you're not exactly sure how to feel because there's kind of points on both sides, and it's a very difficult situation and like moments where you have to make this choice or the characters have to make these choices and you're like, I don't really know what I would choose. There's good and bad points to everything here. And speaking of difficult spots to be in, we get the villain Spot, who is so interesting. I want to see more of him in the next one, and I think we're definitely going to be getting that. But I did not expect him to be as crucial as he was to the story, considering when you first see him, he seems a little kind of pathetic. And the only reason I mention it is because I like this dynamic that he is weirdly just lame, but also going to be the cause of a lot of the chaos and conflict and emotion that happens in this next one and what happened towards the end of this one. But for all that seriousness and emotion, it definitely does not lose its lightheartedness at all along the way. And it's so funny. There are so many humorous, hilarious moments, and you know it's going to be coming. But for as grounded as this movie is, halfway through, it definitely becomes a giant Easter egg hunt. Guys, you have to be giant Spider-Man fans to get probably half of these references, but even some for just general MCU fans or general Spider-Man fans. Like, the entire second half of this movie is just that Leo meme. Like, hey, look, it's the guy. But I think one of the biggest reasons that this just felt so good was that the movie does feel important. There's a lot of things that come with sequels where it just feels like it's there to be a sequel, to be a cash grab. They kind of maybe come up with, these good ways of bringing back the plot that needs to be there without it feeling contrived. But I think in this case, this is honestly like almost the penultimate Spider-Man movie because it feels like it's wrapped up and tied in every iteration, quite literally, of Spider-Man. So it's just kind of like the essence of Spider-Man is the character in this one. Obviously, it's Miles Morales is the main character, but again, it shows that anybody can be Spider-Man, and really it's about the essence of Spider-Man, the character of Spider-Man, not any one person underneath it for a lot of this movie, and I really, really like that. I am surprised that for me, being who I am and needing things to make a lot of sense and connect, I am surprised that I'm so okay with the Spider-Verse thing, but I think it's a combination of just the MCU has gotten me used to multiverse stuff, and also the fact that while it does feel tied into some major things going on right now with other movies, specifically maybe in the MCU, it does feel just a little bit more separate than everything else, so I'm just kind of having fun with it and being open to these ideas. I have one middle, and it's one that's basically going to be a polarizing thing for most people in the audience, is whether you liked it or not, is the ending, and I'm obviously not going to say what happens, but I think at this point it's pretty common knowledge, and just from the fact that it was called Part 1 originally, that this isn't like, it is its own movie, but it is definitely part 1 of 2. So it does end on some semblance of a cliffhanger. And it does, basically they introduce a big thing towards the end of the movie. And it's kind of like they're either going to rush this or they're going to end it in a cliffhanger. And they wrap things up at the end, with a lead into the next one. And it does feel a little bit unfinished, which is kind of the point. But even for like just, the part 1 of 2, it feels like it should wrap up. But it just kind of does feel like we stopped. We paused the movie. And it should be like a 3-hour movie, but it's paused. I was okay with it because it does make sense. It's going to build up to something even bigger, which is very, very cool. But for a lot of people, they're not going to love it as much. I really only have one very big low, and it is also a tentative low. So a little asterisk there. Basically, the low is that there's a lot of info dumping in a lot of scenes of this movie. And it reveals a lot of things that are very interesting. It makes for very emotional, incredible scenes. But I couldn't help but think throughout this entire movie as I was getting these things, I don't know about that. Or, I'm not sure that quite makes sense. And after the fact, when I was talking with some friends after we all saw it, we all kind of agreed on some of the same points that felt like they didn't quite make sense. Like, why would this be there if logically this needed to be there, that kind of thing. So it's like a couple things that if they're not explained in the third one, it could end up feeling like major plot holes, or should I say spot holes. And I'm really, really hoping that they do explain some things further in the next one, because again, there is a lot of like very detailed things that need to be explained in order for you to understand why this is so important. But it doesn't quite make sense to me at the moment. But again, it is a tentative low. I'm going to hold off on making it an official low until I see the third one, because maybe it will wrap up. Again, there should be answers within, it should be self-contained. But for this one, I'm going to give it a tiny bit of a pass. And who knows, maybe the answers will inevitably come from just discussions among the fans and fan theories, because honestly, they probably have a ton. So Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which has had incredibly raving reviews, the highest on Letterboxd and IMDb and all of these things. Yeah, I can see why. I can absolutely see why. I loved this movie. It takes the best of its predecessors, these kind of two eras of Spider-Man, the more personal Spider-Man and like Spider-Man 2 with his more grounded personal conflicts and issues and the daily struggle of being Peter Parker and Spider-Man at the same time, and the more multiverse era of Spider-Man in the MCU, where it's all these crazy things going on, all these absurd, chaotic, wacky things, and all these Easter eggs and connecting things with one another while also deepening the identity of Peter Parker. It takes both of those things and combines them to make what is probably one of the coolest and deepest Spider-Man movies that we have to date. And it leaves you with this emotional cliffhanger that within the span of one movie has set up what is probably going to be one of the most cataclysmic and emotional and insane finales to a trilogy that we've had in a long time in superhero movies, honestly probably rivaling Infinity War. Yeah, so I think I could say I liked it. And I will acknowledge it is for very hardcore Spider-Man or superhero movie fans who have been following this. If you are not one of those, it will probably seem very exhausting, confusing, even very overwhelming to you. It is a lot, but if you are one of those fans, you are in for a really good time. I'm going to give Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse a 4 out of 4, making it my next top shelf movie. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Across the Spider-Verse in the comments below. Obviously, spoiler-free. I'm thinking of maybe doing a spoiler discussion about it. I'm not quite sure yet. We'll see. We got a lot of other movies coming out in June that I have to do as well. But let me know what you thought of it and what some theories you might have what theories are that you might have. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.